Hello everyone, welcome to today's news charter. The idea of news charter is to give the aspirants a complete idea about the entire news which are important from prelims, mains and interview perspective. So that a person who is preparing for UPSC can just read the newspaper on his own but will not miss out on any of the important points. So let's start with today's news charter. Right. So for today, these were the important topics which were in the news. Loss and Damage Fund, Enforcement Directorate has been continuously in the news. Green Credit Initiative of India, National Program for Civil Services Capacity Building, that is Mission Karma Yogi. Myanmar issue, what we should note for prelims. And then some important points for prelims, one important point for mains has also been included. Let's start with the Loss and Damage Fund. Loss and Damage Fund has been evolving for a very long time, but in the present COP 28, it has been decided that we will go forward with the Loss and Damage Fund. So what is the aim of this fund? At present, the climate change has been causing a lot of problems to almost all the countries. But in specific countries, especially those countries which are island nations, which are small island nations, and those in the South Asian region, they are facing a lot of problems. So, whatever economic losses they are getting because of the climate change, that should be compensated. So, this is the basics behind the evolution of loss and damage fund. So, in order to compensate the damages they have been incurred because of climate change. So, from prelims point of view, what you will get how this loss and damage fund has been evolving in all these years. The first time when we talked about loss and damage fund was in COP 19, which happened in Warsaw in the year 2013. This is the event in which we established the loss and damage fund to provide financial and technical assistance. Then, after 6 years in Madrid, COP 25 happened, in which we came up with Santiago Network for loss and damage. Santiago Network is to implement the loss and damage fund. But the problem is none of the countries commit anything about the fund. Later, COP 26 happened in Glasgow in 2021. Here, discussions started and they said that now we need to somehow implement this loss and damage fund. So they took 3 years, 3 years of rigorous discussion, continuous meetings, and finally, in COP 27, which happened in 2022 in Sharm el Sheikh, what happened is they agreed to set up the loss and damage fund. They started transitional committees. Committees means the committees to discuss about it. So in 2023, Dubai, which is the present one, they agreed to operationalize the loss and damage fund. So here the things which you should remember is in 2013 they established it. In 2019 they came up with Santiago Network. Then in 2022 they agreed to set up the loss and damage fund. In 2023 they decided to operationalize it. So funds have received commitments worth rupees $250 million from countries, which is not much important. The World Bank will be the interim host. This point is extremely important for your prelims perspective. So these are all the things you should be remembering when we talk about loss and damage fund. Very important for this year's prelims examination. Let's move on to the next one. Enforcement Directorate has been in news since long time now, especially because in most of the states, especially those states which are ruled by the opposition parties, Enforcement Directorate has been engaged in a lot of raids. So we need to know what Enforcement Directorate is, some basic things about it, so that in prelims, when we are getting a question, we'll be in a position to answer it. It deals with investigation offenses of money laundering and foreign exchange specifically. What are all the laws which are getting covered by Enforcement Directorate has been covered in the last point. These laws you should know. First one, Conservation of Foreign Exchanges and Prevention of Smuggling Activities Act. We call it as COFE POSA. In this act, we deal with foreign exchange mismanagement. That is included. Foreign Exchange Management Act, FEMA. This will also be taken care by Enforcement Directorate. Prevention of Money Laundering Act, 2002. And then finally, even the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. Fugitive economic offenders are those people who have got money from the country and then they escaped to some other country in order to prevent repayment of the money. Vijay Mallya is the classic example of this. So in order to get these people back to our country, we have passed the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. Enforcement Directorate will take care of it. Certain basic points or some basic facts which you should be knowing. It functions under Department of Revenue of the Ministry of Finance. Totally 5 regional offices are there. So this point I have included here and it is very important because we have Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata and Delhi, which is very easy to know. Usually these places will always be there, but Chandigarh is also included here. So if you are getting a statement about this, remember that Enforcement Directorate has a regional office in Chandigarh also. Total tenure, 2 years will be the tenure of the director of the Enforcement Directorate. For the Enforcement Directorate, 2 years is the tenure, which can be extended to 5 years. But how you will do it? For each and every year, one annual extension should be provided. So if the government decides that the present Enforcement Directorate has to be reappointed for every year, once in every year, they will give an extension for 1 year. So in that way, they can take it until 5 years. So this point is very important because this change happened very recently and it was continuously in news. It was subjected to a lot of criticisms also. So you should be knowing about it. Green Credit Initiative. So in the recent COP 28, the government, Indian government came up with a Green Credit Initiative. So this is very, very important for both prelims and mains. For both prelims and mains. So what we should know about it? Credit means giving loans, giving financial support. Green Credit Initiative is for environmentally positive projects or green projects. So here it is a completely digital and tradable instrument for environmental sustainability. The instruments should be completely digital in nature, and the most important point here is tradable. This was a major problem with all kind of credit initiatives of which were related to environmental projects. The uh, the instruments were not tradable in nature. That was a major problem. Now, when it becomes tradable, anyone can give credit to anyone, and later they can trade the credit also, which will bring in a lot of economic benefits for them. Apart from this, they have launched a green credit portal also. It will act as a repository for all the environmental projects which are getting green credits. Priority is given to two kind of activities. One is water conservation and second one is afforestation. This point becomes very, very important. Function as tradable commodities. The Green Credit Initiative will function as a tradable commodity. It can be sold on domestic market platforms. Who is administering this Green Credit Initiative is very important. Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education. Very important point for your prelims examination. Let's move on to the next one. National Program for Civil Services Capacity Building Mission. Civil Services Capacity Building Mission is also called as the Mission Karma Yogi. Here, the government decided that we need to train our civil servants so that they will be ready for the future changes. At present, the Digital India campaign is going on. Everything is getting digitized. We need people in the government who have extra skills, who keep pursuing some kind of skills. So this is the reason we have come up with this mission. So what are all the basic provisions here? Setting up an integrated government online training or IGOT platform, which is called as IGOT Karmi Yogi platform. Transition from rules-based to roles-based. Rules-based means how civil servants used to work. We will have rules, service rules are there. Based on the rules we will work, we will not go out of it. But at present, with the recent changes in the governance, we need roles-based management. Roles-based means everyone will play certain role, and the roles will keep changing according to the times, according to the requirement of the time. So government is giving importance to it. It emphasizes on on-site learning and off-site learning also. Apart from off-site learning, that is classroom-based or whatever training we are getting. Apart from that, we need to promote on-site learning also. So learning is a continuous process. People who are in the service also should continuously keep learning something or the other. To make available to all civil servants an opportunity to continuously build and strengthen their behavioral, functional, and domain competencies. This is the aim of it. So here what the government is doing, they are partnering with content creators, public training institutions, universities, startups, and then individual experts. All these people can train the civil servants. Whenever there is a requirement, civil servants can also get trained here. Set up a capacity building commission. What this commission will do to ensure a uniform approach throughout the mission, we should have a uniform approach. So in order to do that, we have come up with a capacity building commission. So this particular program itself is very important for your mains examination, because in paper 2 we have the role of civil servants as a topic, so we should cover it. Myanmar has been continuously in news. Myanmar has been in news for a very long time. In the recent times, it has become very, very important because too much of violence is going on. It is a war kind of issue, a war kind of situation in Myanmar. So we need to know about it very well, especially for prelims examination. From prelims examination point of view, when we talk about the Myanmar issue, we can expect only certain things. Most probably, you will get something related to the border. So what we should know as a civil service aspirant, what you should be knowing is what are all the states which border Myanmar. One thing, Arunachal Pradesh is there. Then we have Nagaland. Then we have Manipur. And then we have Mizoram. These four are the states which border Myanmar. Apart from that, Myanmar is open to Bay of Bengal, which you should be knowing about. There is a very important river which passes through Myanmar, that is river Irrawaddy. Airavati or Iravati. That river is very important. You should be knowing about it. Some basic details, if they are giving any statement-based questions, some basic details you should know. They gained independence from Britain in 1948. This point is important. In Myanmar, Myanmar's parliament, the military holds 25% of the seat. So it is not a complete democracy. Even though they say that we wanted to implement democracy. The army has been saying that we wanted to implement democracy. From 2011, they have been trying to implement democracy. But then they hold 25% of the seats in the parliament, and they hold some of the important ministries also. So in this case, we cannot tell that it is a proper democracy. And in the recent times, the violence has increased so much. Apart from all these things, one major point which is important for India's foreign policy also is the Rohingya issue. Rohingyas are Muslim minority communities, especially in this particular region, that is Rakhine. There is a state called Rakhine, and then there is a state called Kachin. So in Rakhine, Kachin, we have the Rohingya community who are persecuted. They are Muslim minorities, and Myanmar is a Buddhist majority country. So they are getting persecuted continuously. So because of this, what happens is they escape from Rakhine, they get into Bangladesh. Not just Bangladesh, they get into Manipur and Mizoram also. So too many Rohingya community refugees are staying in India illegally, which is a very big issue for India because managing refugees, giving them food, giving them work, and spending a lot of states' money on it is a very big concern. So that is a major problem. So these are all the basic things you should be knowing from prelims point of view. One important point which you should know from mains examination perspective, which was in news today, in among the entire G20 countries, India has the smallest number of civil servants. We always say that we have the highest number of civil servant. Civil services should be very lean. Civil service should not have a lot of manpower in it. We have to completely computerize it, include more e-governance and all these things. But the problem is we already have very less civil servants, whereas the population is very high. And especially in India, the population of the poorest section is very high. In such case, this statement clearly tells that we are in need of more civil servants also. One important point from prelims examination perspective, state's debt is very high in India. So these kind of questions you will get in your prelims. They will give some 3-4 questions about the Indian economy. They will tell that the state's debt was very less in the recent times. The state's debt has been continuously reducing in the past 5-6 years. So you have to be very careful about it. State's debt has been increasing since COVID times. Now it has become 31.32%, which is about 30% of the GDP. So this point is very, very important. Thank you. That's all for today. Let's meet tomorrow.